Okay, we're just going live now, Spencer, so feel free to start speaking and go.
Okay. So I think everybody can now hear us. If Laura, can you confirm that we're actually live now?
Yes, you are.
Excellent. So a pleasure to be here in front of the Tower Exchange community. Sad that we're not face-to-face in person during these troubled times, but looking forward to this panel discussion that we have arranged here for you with some very competent and extensive guests that we've got. Before I introduce them and the topic of the panel, just a quick introduction from myself, Spencer Crawford-White. I'm the owner of Urtus, the technical consultancy that manages tower asset infrastructure solutions for towercos and MNOs around the world. The topic that we have today for you is finding value in the passive infrastructure and delivering 5G. It's the sort of topic of discussion, 5G, hot topic for rollout. And as part of the panel today for you, have some very exclusive guests. And if we could just ask them to introduce themselves, who they are, their companies, and the size and scale. And we'll start with Abdul Rahman. If you could please start, please.
Sure. Very warm welcome to everyone. I'm Abdulrahman Al-Maigel, the Chief Commercial Officer of Tawal, the young infrastructure company in Saudi Arabia, handling the commercial and sales aspects and product services portfolio development for Tawal. Pleased to be here today.
Thank you, Abdul Rahman. And if we could move to Kamil, if you could do the same, please.
Yeah, sure. Hello, thank you for having me, Andrew. So I'm Kamil Hilali. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Zain Group, also CEO of Zain Wholesale Business. Pleased to be here with you guys and looking forward for this session.
Thank you, Kamil. And finally, but not least, Boyan, if you could please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Spencer. Good day to everybody. My name is Boyan. I'm a project advisor with Oman Tower Company and also in the company in charge for rollout and projects.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you guys for joining this session, and it's a good topic of choice for discussion. Let's make it interesting for the audience, and toward the end there will be some audience participation by some questions that will be raised. But really I want to get into looking at 5G rollout. How is it progressing in the MENA region? Are your investments showing sort of desired returns at this moment, and what stage are you at? So that's really the first sort of question I'd like to understand for the MENA region. I think if we can go back to the new TowerCo, Abdul Rahman, if you could explain how you're looking at the 5G and the infrastructure rollout and how it's going, please.
Sure, it has been an interesting topic since a couple of years so far. And looking at it specifically in Saudi Arabia, where Saudi has been called #1 in peak download speeds globally, which is an achievement that we haven't had ever before. All operators in Saudi have been actively rolling out 5G since the inception, even before the consumer products are in the market, which is also a trend that has been there in the Saudi market since even 4G and before. So far, the rollout has been a competition between operators. We've seen operators launching services, promoting packages for 5G, answering the original question that was there since a year or more about what should be the main use case for 5G at the beginning. And that was something that all operators have been discussing and deciding also to go with fixed wireless access and mobile broadband, just like in 4G. Which also requires high intensity rollout. So we've seen all operators, specifically the ones that we are serving, naturally, since we are also carved out from STC. So most of the 5G rollout that we are supporting is from STC. However, we've seen all operators that we are serving also activating 5G and doing that quickly. We're seeing an increasing number of sites supporting 5G We're expecting around 6,000 or more this year to be also with 5G active services. The rollout is picking up and the competition is picking up. The business case for 5G continues to be something operators take care of, and hence we see our role to be extremely significant to make that even more feasible for operators.
Yeah, sure. And Boyan, obviously coming Oman Tower Company, a similar sort of position for you, Boyan. How's it going in Oman?
Well, in line with what Abdurrahman said, we also see a lot of activities, deployment of 5G networks from all operators. In Oman, there's been already a commercial use, which is sort of like replacement of fiber broadband access where it is not available, so it is being compensated with 5G. And all the operators and the new operator coming in, Vodafone is actually deploying immediately 5G, of course, technology. So yes, there is a lot of activity. And I think I would just add to what is said here that it is still sort of early stage of it. So it's everybody's expecting so much out of it, and the services, kind of services, and the kind of applications that we are waiting from IoT are something like a very bright future that is coming. So it is actually exciting to be here in the region, where I can see that those implementation activities are really sort of, let's say, ahead of the curve. Yeah. So I believe I think I saw from one of the colleagues in one of the previous sessions, or when I talked with him, he was actually saying that here in the region, maybe it will become just from adopting to actually leading this usage of 5G technology. And of course, we as Oman Tower Company and all TowerCos, we play here a very important role.
Yeah, I mean, as a consumer, you know, we are expecting good big things from 5G and solving a lot of data gaps in the market and, you know, communication, but, you know, Internet of Things and everything else. Camille, obviously more mobile focused and driven. How are your 5G rollout plans for the region developing? And as I say, the spend that you're having, is it showing a return?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we're a regional company, right? So, I mean, just to answer about MENA, I think MENA is a diverse region. You see different dynamics, different needs. So you're gonna see different 5G rollout strategies, right? What we're seeing is that basic markets where we have data as a key growth, you know, in terms of capacity, but revenues, that's where we are actually seeing and witnessing, you know, aggressive 5G rollout, right? We've seen basically, you know, that these rollouts, you know, have proven to be basically timely because of the surge of data users, especially in the times of COVID, right? Working from home and all the data requirements from our customers. And also, you know, the availability of the 5G devices, I think that was a key as well. So in countries like, you know, KSA, as you know, my colleague here had mentioned, but also Kuwait and, you know, Bahrain now, frankly, I mean, 5G is picking up big time. And for KSA and Kuwait specifically, they are today among the best in class globally in terms of technology, but also internet speed, okay? And in terms of returns, you know, I think, you know, we're seeing as well, you know, subscribers, but also revenues are picking up, which in a very positive trajectory. Going back basically just, you know, to Zain as a mobile business, you know, for the past 2 years, frankly, I mean, I think we're witnessing a big change because the strategy now is moving from being a mobile company to become a digital service provider. So one of the areas of focus as well within the telco segment is actually the fixed infrastructure. And we know how that important basically whether the international segment or the national segment for the 5G as well. I mean, most of the sites now need to be linked to the fiber, right? FTTH is going to be important along with 5G, and you know how we can play between the two to be able basically to accommodate for all the demand that we have from our customers, be it the B2B customers or B2C. So I think that 5G then basically is playing a big role and essential for this transformation.
Cool. And we're still in the early inceptions of 5G rollout, obviously, and we heard from Abdurrahman that, you know, 6,000 more sites this year, but as a percentage to total network, we've still got a long way to go. And I think the technology is going to change you know, where we're looking at that urban densification in the future. So what strategies, if we stay with Camille, what strategies are you seeing from your infrastructure where you're getting the best value? Is it towers? Is it the rooftop sites? Where in the market is the focus and the strategy?
Okay, so look, I mean, in terms of passive infrastructure in general, I think, you know, we have different strategies based on the markets. So we've seen basically what we've done in Kuwait, for instance. We sold and leased back our towers. Okay, so this is something, I mean, that is clear for that market specifically, where we've done the transaction in the past with IHS. Other markets, you know, I'm not going to be specific, but other markets, we are looking basically to build captive tower companies. Okay, and this is, you know, on the back of a partnership we have with the Task Towers today. So we're looking to help build actually independent tower co. So for us, this is, you know, so we have mix of strategies, either sell and lease back or actually, you know, help create an independent tower co on the back of the assets that we have in certain markets. So you have that, and then again, basically, in terms of, you know, partners, you know, I think we have a mix. We're trying to capitalize on the existing infrastructure for the 5G, capitalize basically, focus on indoor solutions for sure because of the need of them, you know, given the 5G and, you know, its limitations, etc. We are looking at microcells as well, and also, you know, to the extent possible, we look into site sharing, you know, meanwhile for sure in different markets. So this is it's a mix of strategies based on the markets and its specificities, basically.
And where the demand is, I suppose, where the uptake is from, you know, is it business or is it private? Abdul Rahman, specifically for the Saudi market, you know, you've got a large number of structures in the Saudi market. How are you getting the best out of the infrastructure there? And is it focused in the like Riyadh and Jeddah? Is it focused in those areas at the moment?
We're seeing all kinds of flavor, to be honest. We're seeing some of our clients, operators, focusing on hotspots and big cities, and some of them are also looking to expand their broadband reach that they don't, for example, or can't get with their fiber network. So we're seeing both. We're seeing also support from the government towards covering more and more regions. There is also a race between operators towards covering more cities, and we've seen also some results. Some operators doing slightly more on the expansion around all cities, and some of them are focusing on where most of the traffic is coming from. Of course, from a tower co perspective or from an infra co perspective, we need to look into a lot of aspects. About capacities that can be given, power consumption that is significantly more important now to be allocated, and also the as my colleague Camille just stated, the backhaul solutions that can support 5G services to all their clients. The increase that we're seeing towards the rollout means more sharing and more expectations of, I would say, legacy infrastructure. And that implies also some more expectations on tower cos towards giving that attention as well. And also about availability and about solutions for indoor and having a contiguous kind of coverage. So all of that come along with a huge push from government and from operators towards delivering the service to more regions. There are some specific cases where, for example, a campus or an industrial location that requires 5G service to be there. And that is quite spotty by nature and specifically for an industrial or a specific application. Other than that, it's just more demand on the basic fundamentals, whether it's on space or power.
Yeah, I think being a structural engineer myself, capacity is quite close to my heart, but it's not just about the structural capacity, it's about the physical space as well on the infrastructure, because we're now talking multiple operators, multiple technologies, and how do you fit it on your towers, which were designed for different use cases? So is there a big engineering program that TWAL have had to engage in?
In fact, to that specific point, we're looking into even sharing more components among operators. So if we share more of the highly, I would say, capable components, whether it's in the power, whether it's in the shelters or cabinets, whether even it's on some more advanced passive equipment like antennas, for example, then the same tower, same infrastructure can handle even more capabilities. However, with 5G, there comes a lot of additional components, whether it's on active antennas, whether it's on massive MIMO and so on and so forth, that possibly would require some dedication. We've seen also some operators working on different spectrum. Saudi is quite rich with spectrum, whether it's on 4G or 5G. Mm-hmm. And that also requires more bands to be operated on the same site, which requires more active equipment as well. So all of that aside, with the new, I would say, new culture that operators need to look into, which is the efficiency in space and efficiency in power, with the concept of sharing, that needs to also be in place.
Yeah, that's lovely. Boyan, Oman Tower Company's in a very similar position, obviously sharing infrastructure. And where are you finding that the best sites are being produced for Oman?
Oh, I mean, definitely, if we're looking from the perspective of 5G, then we are talking now this stage, of course, of the urban areas. Yes, I mean, Camille and Abdurrahman really summarized the points very well here. So I don't want to repeat much of what they said, but just, stating out this also what Abdurrahman said, that we need to take care about the availability of power and for example, fiber accessibility and so on. But also we need, I will emphasize more on this sharing concept here, because, we are having multiple technologies. We are having more density, much more density, because, the nature of 5G is that it is going more, let's say, deeper in the areas. That's why this sharing is becoming important. I'll just touch another aspect here, is that we have to take care as well, and this is part of, let's say, Oman Tower Company, sort of, let's call it social responsibility role, and so on, that we need to take care about the environment. So we cannot now build, especially in these areas where 5G is in high demand, we cannot build classical lattice towers. We need to find out with some more innovative solutions. Honestly, to tell you, this is something that is making the whole interesting thing even more interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting you've touched on environmental considerations and obviously regulatory. Have you experienced much dissent or upset from communities about 5G rollout? I know, coming from the UK, we've had some big problems in the last couple of year in relation to 5G perception, let's put it that way. So do you have any issues there?
Well, I think this is common. I guess Camille also confirmed that there is always some sort of discussion about this, but also the approach to explaining and educating actually the population is very important here, and as well, contributing by this, as I mentioned, this innovative solution. I mean, we are proud here in Oman Tower Company. We did bring a couple of solutions, a couple of towers that are quite nicely being placed and recognized in a positive way. So it is interesting, maybe just from the psychological perspective, if you build a classical tower, then everybody will be afraid of the radiation or whatever. But if you put a nice tower, then suddenly many of those concerns are not there anymore. So yes, there are really a lot of angles that this has to be looked at.
Yeah. Those stealth structures are quite expensive and don't lend themselves to shareability. I suppose that's where we want to move on to, again, is like you've picked up, Boyan, about, sharing infrastructure. It's how the business is set up. So what is the role for infrastructure sharing, to reduce that total cost of ownership? How are you managing that? I mean, it's the core of the business, obviously, to be a tower company. but how do you see that growing as 5G sort of rolls out more? Is it that you will deploy more and more shareable infrastructure, or just make better space within your existing infrastructure as a core focus? How do you see it migrating?
I would say it's a combination. I mean, really depends on the specific cases. Since we are also not that old company, I mean, from the start we were looking at what the criteria. The first criteria, one of the first was, okay, what can be shared here? So coming back again to this little bit of social responsibility part, is that we really look at from the cost effective part and from the environmental part, that to bring existing infrastructure together, and wherever we need to build, really to build it in a way that it is shareable.
Yeah. Kamil, you mentioned there about that sale and leaseback type function, looking at that sharing of infrastructure. And before we move on to Al to ask a similar question, making your current assets that aren't shared shareable. How are you managing that process, logically? Because there's a big cost that you could spend for no potential return. So how is it working for Zain?
Okay, so I think, Zain, frankly, I can think back about basically what we've done so far. So I think the first time when we've done something, it was in Kuwait, right? And it was an opportunity for us to recognize basically how beneficial it is, from TowerCo basically in general, of course, to bringing in efficiencies, cost reductions, but then it introduced us as well to a new area or a new core, which is digital infrastructure. And I think this is part of the transformation that we're having here at Zain Group, where we are aiming to create a core, a different core that is totally independent from the telco. I mean, we're aware of the issue around that. I mean, because we've seen it when we've done a deal in Kuwait where we maintain a shareholding, and we know that basically it's important that the telco is independent, that we need to have a clear separation between the customers being a shareholder, but also the people who are managing the flow of information and all that stuff. So aware of all that basically, and knowing of the potential of the industry, okay, from one hand, but also how important it is actually for the telco as well to have that separation, because telco in the future will be all about services, not an infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So we need to focus. Now the themes is the digital transformation. To be able to actually achieve the digital transformation, frankly, and achieve what the OTTs are doing, okay, you can't be dealing with the infrastructure. Infrastructure needs to be for you just SLAs that you're getting from a third party. You get those, and you don't care anymore about planification, etc. So that's the long-term plan, okay, to get there and have that clear separation. We're building that core, pushing the infrastructure away from the telco, push the telco to become like a service-oriented, customers-oriented, and by doing that, guess what? The telco become more efficient, okay? You start actually basically being more appealing to the investors that like the telco, that are not happy about the telco anymore because of mix of infrastructure service, so you have infrastructure which is a game of long-term return investments that are usually very long, telco are shorter. So by splitting those two, you have the two type of investors that are happy now, and then that's where you start deriving the value and taping in, as from shareholder perspective, into the new digital infrastructure where there is a big value as well. So this is what we're doing, taking into account all these constraints, and I think that's what it was key for us to do it through or in partnership with a third party still, and hopefully this is going to be successful, and looking forward to hopefully announce something soon as well.
Yeah, I've tracked the Kuwait opportunity and sale and leaseback very carefully over the years, and obviously more recent movements. But I suppose my question is, are you seeing that value now to enable you to be able to diversify the business into your digital transformation, I suppose?
Definitely. I mean, as I said, the sell and lease back, I think it was a great learning for us. I mean, we're happy about the partnership we have in Kuwait. Frankly, I mean, we are able actually to roll out quicker and better in a more efficient way. Okay, so we have less headache, more efficiencies, etc. We're able actually to push some of those that capital that we're able to extract from that transaction towards the digital transformation effort that we're having, push on the 5G. As you see in Kuwait, I think maybe 70% now of our towers are 5G enabled. Now most of our towers are connected or linked, to fiber. So this is where the push is, and this is all. And we're having a great push in the digital transformation. I think we've seen it on the past times. I mean, with COVID, our networks have been challenged. Our digital channels had to be ready to make sure that basically the spot curfews, etc., our customers have access to the service. Our B2B customers now also we're putting into the B2B. So we're announcing now basically the creation of a company called Zain Data Park, which is a cloud and cybersecurity company, in Kuwait, in Jordan, but soon in other markets. We're announcing another company called Zain Tech, which is going to be like a regional player within the ICT as well. So as you see, I think, we're doing, we solved that basically this passive infrastructure. We're able to get the efficiencies. We're able to get a capital to invest in the digital transformation and the new cores that we're going to have that are going to drive value in the future for Zain. So this Excellent. Is going to be game. Yeah.
No, thank you for feeding that in. Abdul Rahman, obviously you've got the two headaches. You've got the tower company and you've got the mobile side. So I suppose similar question, are you realizing some of the benefits from sort of carving out the towers into a separate pool for the 5G and then having to manage on the STC side as well? How's that work?
I believe this is the crucial point possibly of this discussion. And as Camille just stated, having the right focus from service providers on their services and carving out the I wouldn't call it headache as such, but the focus on the passive infrastructure and sharing it would definitely drive the overall business case for 5G down. In an ideal sharing world, with the right planning, all of the passive infrastructure used for 5G rollout would cost much less for operators, so they can in fact be more bold towards introducing new services based on the 5G capabilities that they just rolled out. And we're seeing this. We're seeing that kind of push towards more rollout. Absolutely, from our side, investing into supporting more capabilities of 5G is also easier from a business case perspective, from a TowerCo perspective, if shared within operators. And at the same time, it costs much less than an operator going ahead and upgrading their own assets. And we've seen the results. Carving out for Zain Group have actually led them towards transitioning into the new era of a service provider. And we're seeing this kind of transformation in the region more and more. It actually gives us the opportunity towards investing a bit more also on better capabilities, towards availability, towards infrastructure readiness to adopt new technologies and new services. That's how we see it. And that's how 5G is pushing the overall wheel towards advancing, whether it's from services perspective or even from passive infrastructure services.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Shifting gear a little bit, we've talked about what we're doing with 5G and that we've been doing it for a while and preparing our infrastructure and the cost benefits. So what's going to drive the next wave, the densification of networks for 5G? Three potential areas. Is it consumer driven, regulator driven, private network driven? We'll stay with you, Abdul Rahman. In Saudi, what do you think is going to drive the mass population of 5G for Saudi?
I think it's still consumer driven, since the selected starting business case is about mobility and fixed wireless access. It still would grow from that regard. And the next wave would be also around the whole ecosystem, whether it's in-building solution or also about microsites that we just mentioned as well. So the whole small cell concept would be pushed maybe 10 times more than how it was with the 4G. We will see those kinds of smart street furniture and connected furniture. And and microsites being even more deployed right now. We see an important role for infrastructure companies towards providing those with the business case suitable for service providers to accept that. We have seen the challenges before with 4G and the business case for small cells and all. So we do anticipate that this would be even the next wave from an infrastructure company perspective, where all of those solutions would be also requested. We have seen that in mega projects. We have seen mandate towards more compliant infrastructure, whether it's in-building solution, whether it's microsites, and also making them available for sharing, which is again on the edge of the technology. We've seen some challenges in the past year about 5G sharing for in-building solutions because it is around rolling out those new products. So this is how we anticipate the next wave from an infrastructure side, and we anticipate the new selected products and services from operators to also drive more customized solution from an infrastructure side.
Excellent. And is there much regulatory influence on meeting targets for 5G rollout? I know across Europe there's certain dictation in relation to by 2025 we have to have certain percentage coverage, XYZ. Is it a strong pressure from the regulator ministries?
In fact, it is a positive pressure. So we've seen some KPIs that are being requested from operators towards rollout percentages, towards performance figures for end users. So those are on the positive pressure side towards rolling out more services. We have seen also an active role from a regulatory perspective, trying to introduce the digital backbone for all other industries, trying to link the gap between industries and the technology and 5G dependency with operators. We've seen a lot of MOUs being signed, specifically with the mega deals and mega projects, towards enabling them and connecting them with the right infrastructure and the right services from service providers in Saudi. So all in all, it is on the positive side, towards pushing more rollout, towards pushing more of the service to be covered with the specific KPI.
Perfect. Boyan, switching to Oman Tower, similar question. Do you find it's consumer driven that you're preparing the towers, and is there regulator push for Oman Tower Company to develop and deploy the infrastructure for 5G?
Well, I would say specifically for Oman Tower Company, it is the combination of regulatory and commercial, let's say, environment. But if you allow me also to add here is that the looking at the value chain that was discussed now on this panel, I would say that the value chain somehow is expanding with the rollout of 5G. Because we heard Camille saying also that of course much more now emphasis is on services, digital transformation, partnerships. That means the new, let's say, the new players are coming not in a way to take maybe like from operators a piece of cake, but actually generating the new revenue streams. And this is something that you know, the rollout of 5G and all of this what we discussed is actually enabling this whole value chain, many of new components to come in. And we in Oman Tower Company, we see ourselves as you know, one of the parts of this value chain, enabling this, and also what was said, you know, enabling in a way that we can provide this on a shared basis, on a basis that the costs are driven down. That it's shifted from the capex to opex model, leaving less cash exposure to the operators and to the subsequently to the other players in this extended value chain.
So critical, I'd say, to your plans is your relationship with the mobile network operators, the carriers, so that you know when and where they want their new deployments. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, cool. And obviously building those relationships is key. And I see lots of LinkedIn posts about Oman Tower Company and the relationships with their key anchor tenants and clients. So is it a difficult job to manage that, or you're finding it very smooth and very slick?
Well, I mean, it's always the difficult, maybe it's not the word I would use. You can use it like a challenging, but challenging in a positive way. Because, if there is no action and there's not much things to work on, then there's also no fun on the other hand. So as long as it is enjoyed, and it is very, I mean, we are dealing with the new technologies here. We are dealing with the future. We are dealing with the, as I said, also something to improve the whole environment. So basically, I wouldn't say this is challenging in a negative way, challenging in a very positive way.
Good. Camille, obviously coming from more the operator side specifically, obviously 5G is consumer driven for the mobile operator. How are you finding regulatory support? I know personally from working in Bahrain with Zain and the TRA, there's a heavy influence in Bahrain specifically. Is that common across Kuwait and other markets that you're in?
Look, and I think regulatory is very important. It's key because, from the MNO perspective or from telco perspective, I mean, you are looking at, opportunities to contribute or enable the digital economy, to create value, etc. But that, of course, I mean, we need to invest. We need to invest in the 5G and other segment of the business. So it's critical for us that, the regulators understand the challenge we're facing, which is, investment for the sake of those objectives that are, dear to us. But we need basically to have the regulations that would protect us, that would enable us basically to pursue those objectives of ours. So given that we are a regional company, of course, we see different level of maturity of regulators, right? I think I don't want to offend anyone, but it is what it is. I mean, if you see, for instance, what's happening in Saudi, I mean, there is a big change in basically ranking of the kingdom in terms of digital economy, right? And I think this is, of course, if anything, it's because of what the regulator was successful to do. Give the right incentives, support the operators, etc. Because he's aware that this is key component to the economy, key component to building basically the economy of the future. So I think regulators can play a big role, and they need to understand that operators, they need to survive, they need to make some money, okay, and they need incentives to be able actually to invest more and more. So yeah, regulatory is very, very key, very key.
Yeah, from my perception, working around the African, Asian, European markets, I was positively surprised and happy to see the involvement that the regulators take at the grassroots level to support those factions. Now that can be also a bit contradictory as well. It can be a bit controversial. Having worked with communication regulators in other markets, some of them just really don't care, and so it's positive, I think, that there's an engagement there for the Middle East region.
Look, and I think the way I see it is that even the regulatory part, I think there is an evolution, right? I think if I've been in the telco industry for the past 10 years. I mean, I'm coming from investment and engineering background, but when I entered the industry, I think back then we were at at certain. I think the mandate of the regulators back then was to make sure that the prices are affordable, bringing in competition, etc. I think it made sense back then, right? But I think we moved that, frankly, because now we're in a situation where, as telecom operators, we still have to invest. I mean, we had 4G, now it's 5G, the fiber, the data centers, it keeps coming, okay? So now the regulators need to understand that now is the time actually not to protect the customers because we're already there. I mean, it's all affordable, but actually, to help and protect the operators as well. And I think this is key. And that shift needs to happen, and it's happening in some of the market, but it still needs to happen in others.
No, that's good. I'm going to stay with you on this next one. So we're looking now at what site typologies that we're going to need for the service and, densification, heterogeneous networks, so, okay, I know you've carved out some of the tower assets, but you still have an influence, obviously, on the type and configuration and capacity requirements for what is going to be needed in the future. Everybody knows macro. We've got monopole structures and lattice towers and rooftop sites, but looking at those new site typologies, and for the audience as well that be interested, that maybe have some clever technologies or sensible, cheaper solutions, what will your considerations for new site typologies, I should say, be for the future?
To be frank with you, I think it's mix and match. I mean, it depends on, on the countries, on the use cases as well, right? I mean, because now we're talking about private networks, for instance, we're talking about microcells, MIMOs. We're talking about 5G, but frankly, I think we need to be talking about, connectivity in general, right? I mean, because you have to have fiber, 5G, and maybe 6G in the future, we'll see. Mm-hmm. But it's all about basically, where the demand is, where basically, we need to make sure that, the quality of the service is there for our customers based on use cases. We need to look at, where there is a value added that we can create for our customers, not just the B2C, customers, where we need to get basically the connectivity to their houses, have coverage, across the house, be able that when they are on they're playing games, etc., the latency is good, etc. But also for our B2B customers, the data centers, we have the redundancy, etc. So I think, we have different tools available to us, and we're going to have to mix and match those to achieve those SLAs. And I think that's the name of the game, how to achieve the SLAs for our customers, B2B and B2C.
Okay, but you still see the macro site being very critical to the infrastructure. I know we're talking a lot about small cells, street furniture, building mounted antennas and equipment, which may be the volume in the long term. But are the macro sites going to be the core to the network always, or do you see them diminishing over time?
Look, I mean, they're going to be very important. They will remain. But I think now we have more tools for us to reach out, right, to our customers. So I think, they're going to be essential, but we're going to need to complement our network now with those, new technologies that we have in hand. I think that's how it is.
Perfect. Boyan, with Oman Tower Company, what sort of strategies do you have for new typology of site configurations looking forward for the future? Not so much just the macro sites that you have, but what are you considering for the future for the network?
We have different considerations. I touched on some of those. We do, look at the topologies that actually are fitting in the environment, especially in urban areas. Again, with this density that's coming with 5G, we have to be even more careful with that. Of course, there is always a cost perspective, but as I said, this double role. There is also this street furniture that you just mentioned now, like bus stations or that kind of things, lamp posts, street lighting, then also in the middle of some roads to put a proper topology to cover different areas. And again, as you said, with more density, this is becoming more and more important. Of course, always the good planning and the right, balance between the cost and the usability. This is important what we are trying to achieve. But definitely we are exploring this area a lot. And we see in general tendency to that this is something that all of us will be more and more in the future investigating.
Would you, it's just a personal opinion of mine, that I see potentially tower companies or even MNOs getting more utility owner infrastructure contracts in place, like MSAs for, street lighting columns that they can apply equipment to. And so maybe in the future, there's some alignment between existing utility companies like power poles, lighting companies, and the towerco to extrapolate or monopolize, I suppose, on vertical real estate. Is that something in your plans for the future, or would it be a consideration?
This kind of is definitely a consideration, of course, depending again on the regulatory environment and how what actual needs are and what actual our clients, which are in this case telecom operators, are requesting. So basically, we are driven from the business perspective in these potential agreements or corporations, as you mentioned. Yeah, this is something definitely not to be written off in advance. Something that definitely will, in some way, with some entities, be a part of the future story.
Excellent. And over to Abdul Rahman. What are Tawal's and STC's plans for different site typologies in Saudi? Is it going to really focus about the macro site still for a long time, or are we seeing the green shoots of new types?
In fact, I would like to answer this differently. It's not just what we are trying to do is that we aggregate all of our clients, not just STC, from demand perspective in order for us to be more optimized. And we would like also to offload the site specifications from operators. As Camille said, they need coverage there. Then it's really to Tawal or the infrastructure company to select the optimum type with the optimum configuration that will deliver the optimum value for that operator. So what we want to do is that, okay, we request coverage in that specific area. We'll go try to select the optimum coverage requirements with the optimum coverage site types and specifications that will give the best value for operators to deliver the maximum value from their site. So we wouldn't, as a tower infrastructure company, we wouldn't select camouflaged or heavy capex sites in areas that wouldn't be required. And at the same time, we will also need to negotiate and agree if it's a must to get the maximum value there. And if it is camouflaged, at least it would be shared with all operators to offload them from that additional cost in that specific location. So in fact, we would like to take that responsibility, take that ownership, and drive optimization as much as possible with the mega projects, with the urban owners at that specific site to comply with all the requirements, whether it's environmental, whether it's from a static standpoint, or from coverage as well for operators. So we try to have an active role doing all of those points together to get the maximum value. So we see from mega projects, for example, a strong push towards aesthetics and environmental or carbon footprint requirements. And we do that when required with the efficiency in mind, obviously. And we try to aggregate the demand with all operators to minimize the number of infrastructure requirements. And at the same time, if the choice is ours, we select the most optimum solution, obviously, for those sites where we don't have such regulation.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you, Abdul. I'm being given my wrapping up orders from the team at Tower Exchange because we've literally exhausted our time, and I know we could carry on for another hour if we needed. It's been an absolute pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much for supporting this. I hope the audience out there have enjoyed it as much as I have anyway. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person next year or before. And just best wishes to the Tower Exchange community. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.